helped expand it in 2003 from Princeton, New Jersey to New York, and then LA, then globally. We became the IT consultants for a lot of celebrities and Fortune 500 CEOs. We've been featured in just about every news outlet to comment on our college admissions expertise. We are also two of the stars of the hit Netflix documentary Operation Varsity Blues about that crazy, if you remember the Lori Loughlin scandal. We do think it's important to point out that we were on the ethical side. They were interviewing us on how to do it ethically, and then, of course, how this crazy guy did it to cheat the system. We are backed by some of the biggest names in education, from Google to Techstars to USC out here in Los Angeles, as well as a few other big names in tech. And today we're going to be talking about the top 5 things that students or that families make, the top 5 mistakes along the college admissions journey. And the first one is just starting the process too late. I see we've got a nice, healthy disbursement of grades here. We've got 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders. Even if for the 11th graders, starting now is better than starting when most kids start, which is around spring break of junior year. And so starting late is probably the biggest thing. One, you can miss huge opportunities to be a better college applicant. 2, you can miss huge opportunities to qualify for things like merit aid and scholarships. And 3, you can miss huge opportunities to really start to explore your passions so that you can align your profile for a potential major at a school that makes sense for you. And so that's sort of the big 3. And I'll turn it over to Igor here.
On that theme, just like one of the biggest mistakes that students could make is to start late thinking about college. Parents can make the same mistake thinking about how to pay for it. So there's a couple of things that I want to start with in terms of the cost of college, and chances are you've seen some of these numbers, but maybe and seen some of this information, but maybe haven't put it all together yet. So this is just a graph of different the costs of just tuition for different types of colleges. Obviously, the 4-year private college is the most expensive one. And as of a couple of years ago, that's very close to $60,000 a year. And obviously, this is something that makes you think in terms of, obviously, how can you afford it? So one thing that you can see here is that it keeps rising. There may have been basically a flat sort of fee in one of the years, but make no mistake about it. It's rising, and it's actually rising at an average of about 6% a year over the past 30 years, which means it outpaces inflation, and may outpace some of the investments you're making that you think. So if you're keeping your money in savings account and you're hoping to pay for it, you may not catch up to the level that you need to be saving at to pay for it. So going to the next slide, there's several different ways, obviously, how people can pay for college. And again, you probably know these are the main parts of it that go into financial aid versus what you have to pay out of pocket. Financial aid, the one that you really want to focus on is scholarships and grants. Those 2 types are, one is merit based, the other one is need based, but the point is you don't have to repay those. If your child is able to get those, you don't have to repay them. Then there's work study, which is a relatively small portion, and that's when students earn at part-time jobs as part of their way to paying for college. And then there's loans. And we'll touch on loans. It's obviously a sensitive subject. There are different types of loans. They can be taken by students or parents, but the bottom line is, with some exceptions, the expectation is that you have to repay them. Moving to the next slide. So this is how most Americans save for college. And what I want to point out here is that the biggest chunk on the bottom, the red portion, is 529 plan, which is about 30%. And to its left, there is something called covered LSA and prepaid state plan. All three of these are specially designed different types of plans that allow you to save with additional benefits, usually tax benefits. The other 60% that you can see here, anything from general savings account to checking account to CDs, trusts, investment accounts. If you are doing that, if you're part of 60% of Americans who are trying to do that, don't. This is the reason why we have a job. We can help you save better for your college and at the same time help with your other goals because you're going to be doing it intelligently. So more on 529 plans a little later on. Go ahead.
Sorry. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Barbara. The second place where the second big mistake that families make is with course rigor.
Okay. And hopefully, can you all hear me? Perry, can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, excuse me. One of the main things that colleges are going to look at when they're evaluating a student is not the grades. What were the courses in which those grades were achieved? And what they're looking for is how much did a student challenge him or herself? Okay. So, what does that mean? Okay. So, if it means that you were me and barely could squeak out a B in math, they're probably not expecting me to go to AP calculus. Okay. But what they are looking for in areas that define your lane of interest, first of all, what classes have you taken in that lane? And have you taken the most challenging courses possible in that lane? So if I declare I want to be a math major, I want to go into accounting, and I'm in regular math, regular algebra, regular geometry, pre-calc regular, I'm not really having a story that makes sense to go into accounting, even though I might be passionate about it. Okay. So schools are looking at the rigor of your classes. How much did you challenge yourself? And very often we're asked, well, at what point do you know to bump it up to another level? And our response basically is if you think you can handle it and pull off a B in a higher level, bump it up. If you're really struggling, you barely eked out a B in your prior year, and it's not a subject that you have a particular interest in, then discuss it with us and we'll help you make that decision. Do you bump it up to another level or not? But in today's day and age, with the competition being what it is for college admissions, course rigor is so critical. And so one of the mistakes people make is they're not really challenged themselves. And I'll give you just one personal story. A student who moved here in ninth grade, and friends of the family said, oh, he doesn't have to take any advanced English classes because he's a STEM student. Well, it turns out this student was from one of the most challenging school districts in New Jersey, where some of the most competitive schools to get into get between 2 to 3, almost 400 applicants. And you know what they all had? Challenging English classes. But the family friend said, you don't have to worry about it. You're a STEM student. So please, if you want any advice on where and how to bump up levels, do not listen to family friends. You can, of course, consult with a school counselor, of course, and of course, people like us, and we will give you the guidance that you need.
Yeah. So the third biggest place where families miss opportunities is this concept of differentiation. Okay, so at AKALA, we talk about the three big pillars of college admissions. The first one is commitment. Are you doing a lot of something over time? So for those of you on the call who are in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, this is the opportunity for you to start to develop that commitment over time. Number two is depth. are you going deeper than surface level in your academics, in your, we'll talk about a second, extracurriculars, community service, but most importantly, in your lane, whatever major you're going to go for. Is it computer science? Is it engineering? Is it English? Is it art? Whatever it is, are you going deep enough in your lane to show that you actually do have a passion for that lane? I cannot tell you how many people come to us and say, they say, I want to go into computer science at college. And we say, great, what have we done? And they say, I took AP computer science. Full stop. If that's all you've done, you're not going to get into a very competitive school for computer science, because the kids who are going to get in are doing so many other things in computer science. AP computer science becomes the sort of the table stakes. Yeah, of course you did that. What else did you do to go deeper? And then the third big pillar, which for us is the big one, is differentiation. Okay? We talk about all the time the classic 9. I'm going to pass the buck in a second to Barbara to talk about extracurriculars and community service, but and how to differentiate within that. But we talk all the time about the classic 9. So I'm going to start listing it, and I will guarantee almost 100%, maybe 99% of you on the call will have a kid doing at least one, if not multiple, of these activities. Debate, model Congress, model UN, mock trial, robotics, DECA/FBLA if you're into business, HOSA if you're into health, the orchestra/band if you're into music, and then sports. That's the classic 9. Okay. Almost 100% of students applying to competitive colleges are in at least one, if not multiple of those. Well, if that's all your students doing, I say all because we actually love those things, okay? But we also understand it from the angle of the college admissions officer. If that's all your kid is doing, why should I pick your kid when I've got literally 1,000 applications with the same things on the resume? Everybody's got the grades, everybody's got the test scores, and everybody's got one of those 9. So what can we do in addition to those? To be clear, as I said before, we love those 9. I think they're amazing. I think there's unbelievable skill sets that you can learn in life, that you can gain from those activities. But if we're talking about getting into competitive admissions rate colleges, we've got to layer on top of those things, right? So we're not telling you to stop those things. We're telling you to layer on top of it so that you are, quote unquote, differentiating your child. Okay, it's the number one thing, because I'm telling you, these guys are seeing carbon copies of the same student just over and over and over again, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of them, right? So how are we differentiating? And one of the ways you could do that is with extracurriculars and community service. I'll pass the buck to Barb.
Sure. Okay, so Perry and I love to give real life, time now going on examples. So I'm going to talk about HOSA and Red Cross. So we deal with a lot of students who want to go the pre-med route. And they're thinking biology, they're thinking chemistry. And so they all join HOSA and they all join Red Cross. Great. Now you have it on your application. So as Perry mentioned, everybody does HOSA and Red Cross. Okay, so how do you then show a college, I don't just do these activities, wait till you see the impact I've had. So I'm going to give you an example of what one of our students is currently doing. So she is very savvy with social media. Okay. And so she created an Instagram account where she posts she's up to 2 times a week now. She posts information about specific medical specialties. Because a lot of kids say, I want to be a doctor. Well, great. What does a pediatric rheumatologist do? I don't know. I don't even know what rheumatology is, right? So she's posting individual posts on individual medical specialties. So I said, okay, you can take that a whole lot further, because you have club meetings. What do you do in your club meetings? Well, we talk about the competition for HOSA. Okay. How about this? Take all the kids who are in HOSA, have each of them choose one medical specialty, have them research that medical specialty. What are the applications of it, on and on and on, and have each one find a doctor who specializes in that medical specialty, who would be willing to do a 10-minute video. It doesn't have to be live. They don't have to come in, just detailing their journey to that specialty and what they do in that specialty. And then over the course of the year, you have your club members presenting a specialty with a doctor's video coming in. Okay. Now you've differentiated yourself. All right. So that's what we look to do to help students do. Like, okay, you have this interest, you attend the meetings, great. Everybody attends the meetings. Now, what can we help you design that'll make you really, really stand out? Now, when we move that into the world of community service, so here in LA, we have a lot of Spanish speaking public and a lot of bilingual students. And so our pre-med students here in LA, what they're doing is they're going into the community and they are volunteering their services to accompany elderly people whose command of English is not great to doctors and hospital visits. They volunteer in hospitals to translate for the patients to the staff on the floors. And so they're being exposed to that medical world. But what an amazing service that is to help people who don't have a command of English. They're suffering, uh, and nobody there can speak with them in their language. So we've taken interest in medicine, we've given you an extracurricular, and now we have you doing something that matches community service. Okay. Now, that does not mean everything you have to do, everything you do must be that related to what your lane or what you think your lane is going to be. You also should do things for fun. Okay. We're not saying don't join the cooking club. Okay. You should do things for fun, but you always want to make sure that you also have a story to tell. So when you say, this is what I'm interested in, that you have something to back it up. Okay. Now, if you can't find something to connect to on the community service line, there are other things you can always do in community service, and we get really creative on helping you find those things as well. So a lot of things which you never even have to leave your home to do. Okay. But where you can connect it, we're building that story so a college is not questioning your actual interest. Okay. So that's just one example, the HOSA Red Cross example, only because it's relevant right now. It's happening right now with a student. And those are the kinds of things that we help students create so their story makes sense.
Cool. So, guys, another place where families miss opportunities to get that commitment and that depth and also that differentiation is summer experience. Okay. So many people sleep on summer. We hear all, and by the way, we're sympathetic. Okay. We understand these kids are overworked, underpaid. They're overprogrammed during the year. They're exhausted, and summer should be a time where they get to relax and have fun and whatnot. The problem is like you kind of either have to step on the hamster wheel or not, right? And if you're on it, you got to do what everyone else is doing. And so a lot of kids are taking advantage of the opportunity in summer to do something interesting. And colleges, because they're running out of ways to differentiate kids, are starting to really, not starting, they've been really valuing how you utilize your summer. Did you hang out on the beach all summer, or did you uh, show some intellectual ambition? Did you do some interesting character growth, etc.? We obviously have a picture here of someone who looks like she's doing research. We do want to throw, we love research. However, we do want to throw a bit of caution to the wind here, which is that you have to be really careful in the summer of what we refer to as pay to play programs. Okay. Everybody seems to, there's a ton of these like mega gazillion dollar companies now that will pair you with a graduate student at this fancy college and you'll do this research and whatnot. Colleges are becoming aware of it. And, it's almost like there's a few too many kids doing research and they're kind of being like, right? So we like research. If you can get it in a more authentic way, like maybe you can communicate with a professor at a school or whatnot. That way we can communicate on your behalf to the schools, like, hey, this was done authentically, right? Not I didn't pay for this research program. But be very careful of pay-to-play programs. As we like to say, there's also a lot of pre-college courses. You can go on Brown's campus or Harvard's campus or Stanford's campus. We love those programs. We think they're amazing, but they're not amazing for getting you into college. A lot of colleges, sadly, it's very, very, we'll call it hypocritical, but they have no problem making millions of dollars off of you over the summer, but then they're saying, but we're not going to value it as much in the admissions process. So, as we like to say with the summer programs, they can be great feathers in your cap. They cannot be your crown. So, if we have a lot of kids who come to us and say, well, look, I did go deeper. I did have this extracurricular. I went and studied at Yale for a summer, right? If that's all you have, it becomes really challenging from a getting in perspective for the super competitive schools. If it's like, hey, I did do this, but I also did these 5 other things that I didn't pay a lot of money for, then it can have a lot of value. And there is a lot of value in those programs. You get to study with real professors. You get to live on campus. There's a lot of value to those programs. There's just not a lot of value from an admissions perspective. Go ahead, Barb.
Yeah. So, interestingly, University of Chicago is one of the schools that does recognize when you do their program, and you do get an edge in applications with them.
Well, only if you apply early.
If you apply early, exactly. And so if you have done one of their summer programs and it's actually the deadline is actually earlier than early decision. Okay, that in that case, and I think the other one was Wake Forest, Perry, I think was the other one. I think it was Wake. But you always can check with the school if you're looking at a program at a school. Okay, you can ask them directly, does this have any impact on my admission into your school? And 99.9% will say no, it doesn't. Okay. The other thing is, and what Perry alluded to it in terms of the cost, a student just sent me a profile of a program at Stanford. And you actually take Stanford classes, you actually get a transcript from Stanford. Okay. So you actually get credit. You have college credit. It's almost like, you get your AP and you get your credit, whatever. That's amazing. So I said, did you check out the cost? It's a 3-week program. So she said, not yet. I said, okay, let me go online. Da, 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 da. I kid you not. 3 weeks, $18,700. Yes, they give some scholarships. How many kids do you think they're giving scholarships to? So colleges are just very sensitive to the fact that 99% of the kids in this country cannot afford to do programs like that. So they don't want to give somebody an edge because you had the money to do something like that. And I always tell my kids, if you are going to do a pay-to-play program, it goes number 10 in your activity list. Don't think putting it number 1 is going to help you. Okay. Or it doesn't even go up at all. All right. So just be very, very sensitive to that. The other thing is, and it's only because I just came across this from our friends on TikTok. By the way, we do have a TikTok that's very legitimate called Your College Guru. But I try to monitor what's being said on places like TikTok and companies that say, we guarantee admission into your top 3 schools, and so the latest one that I listened to, who promises admission into your top 3 schools, says, you don't want to be a camp counselor and think that that's going to help you. And I'm like screaming into the computer, you don't know what you're talking about. You think a school doesn't value a student doing 8 weeks of taking care of 10-year-olds, making sure they're safe and they're happy and having a wonderful summer? So beware of TikTok. Okay, when you're listening about summer experiences, and by the way, this place that was saying that they were pushing these pay to play programs. Okay, so please be very conscious of that. Colleges love work experience. It means you had to show up, you had a job, you had to do your job. Okay, and so colleges value very much what you do in the summertime, whether it's research, whether it's being a camp counselor, whether it's being a volunteer, as long as they don't care as much what you do as that you do something. Okay, I just want to make that really clear. Okay.
Yeah. And with that, we will pass it. But just to conclude it real quick before I pass it to Igor, take advantage of summer, guys. There's so much you can do. Obviously, we consult on how you do that, but like take advantage of it. It's really important.
Right. So to continue on the subject, first of all, speaking of TikTok, we are not on TikTok for some of the same reasons that Barbara just mentioned. Our regulatory authority, which is FINRA, does not allow financial advisors to advertise on TikTok. So chances are, if you are watching some video that from a person who's claiming to be some sort of financial guru, is probably not registered or licensed. So be aware of what you see on TikTok when it comes to finances. With that disclaimer, going back to the summer topic, what we find out is that a lot of people we talk to really focus on their finances in the summer, especially if they have kids at school. I'm not sure this is, anything specific other than the fact that, people have busy lives, and between work and kids' school, when it comes to finances, it seems like taxes always keep coming up, and, keeping track of bills and investments, it's a lot. So a lot of the time, summer is the time when parents also start thinking about, oh my God, there's three years left to college. What am I going to do? Try not to do that, but summer is the time when, if you missed it throughout the year, to really think about it. So I'll fast forward to now, so you can actually think about it. Sorry, can you go back for a sec? So I alluded to this before. There's a number of different vehicles, savings vehicles, that various authorities, mostly federal government, but also in some cases states, have made available specifically to save for college, or at least have a specific portion, a specific option within the investment type that allows you to save for college. So on the left, you can see some of the things that you really need to look at to make the right choice of what is best for you. And it's a big checklist. So there's a federal income tax statement, which is the first big thing. How is the savings going to be treated, both from the contributions perspective and distributions, as well as growth? There is state income tax treatment, which also could be a consideration in some states. And then there's all these other things, including gift tax treatment and state tax treatment, maximums, both annual and overall, ability to change beneficiary, because what if you're saving for a kid to go to college and he decides not to, or whatever situation may change? That's something that you may consider. Any kind of restrictions on timing and income, the treatment for financial aid. This is another thing that we get a lot from people. What's the point for me to start this specific account if, when it comes to financial aid, it's going to be counted as my asset? Well, that's not necessarily true. Different assets are being treated differently from financial aid perspective, and you may want to know that before you make a decision. And then, of course, other things, investment choices. What are the qualified expenses that you can actually use the savings for? And what do you do for things that are not non-qualifying expenses? And on the right, you have some of the options. The 529 college savings plan is the most common one. In most cases, it's the most convenient one. I'll talk about it in a second. Coverdale is another one. It's a little older, but it's still usable, and it's actually preferable in certain conditions. UGMA, UTMA, if you're not familiar with it, this is the Unified Gift to Minor account, which has specific quirks that could be very, very helpful as well. And then others, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. They do have, like I said, certain clauses in them, certain options to be used for colleges in specific cases. So now that we can go forward, the next slide is what we call the college savings matrix. It's basically all these different considerations we talked about across all the different types of accounts. Sorry, it's not readable. It's not meant to be readable. We'll send you a link to this so you can download it after the webinar. But this summarizes a lot of the stuff that you need to know to make that decision. So going forward to the next slide, I'll spend a couple of minutes specifically talking about 529 plan. As I said, this is usually the most convenient one, and in many cases, sort of the default one. So this is the overall point of it, the overview. The federal income tax benefit is simple. Once you start the account, the investment within the account grows on a tax-deferred basis, which means you do not pay taxes on anything, any investments that have grown until you actually take money out. And even then, you typically won't, and I'll get to that. So the distribution would be tax-free as long as you use it for qualified expenses which are related to college. So the next point here is what that means. Typically, any kind of direct or indirect expenses, such as tuition, room and board, food plan, various fees for courses, books, and certain other equipment, like, for example, laptop, within a reason. If you're buying a $10,000 laptop every year, probably not, but within the reason. Certain things will be excluded, such as people always talk about transportation. If you live in New York and you go to college in California, flying back and forth is not going to be covered as a qualifying expenses. But if you take in, let's say, a bus to class, it might be. There's a number of other things. Recent changes in laws allow you to do student loan repayment. There's some limitations on that, but that's part of what you can also use college funds for. And also, even on K to 12 tuition, so if your kid is in a private school, K to 12, you could also use 529 plan for that, although some states, and unfortunately some of the most expensive states, have actually limited that. So New York and California, for example, and New Jersey do not allow that, but in many other states it is allowed. The other point is that the contribution limit is very high, meaning in some states the maximum is 529,000. Notice that it coincides with the number 529, and I think that's skewed, but you probably, hopefully, don't need that much. But in any case, the contribution limits are higher than in almost any other college savings plans. In terms of financial aid treatment, I mentioned that previously. The idea is that even though this plan is going to be considered part of parents' assets, colleges know that this is specifically designed to pay for colleges, and therefore it has a favorable treatment. It's not being treated as your checking account, a savings account, or investments. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it's worth a lot less when they figure out your assets as a parent and how much your ability basically to pay for college. It may also have state tax benefits. Let me give you an example. In the state of New York, For a married couple, you can write off $10,000 a year, up to $10,000 a year from your state taxes every year if you contribute to 529 plan. And that does not depend on your income. So think about that. Doesn't matter how much you make. If you contribute to 529 plan up to, and it could be multiple plans, up to $10,000 for a married couple, you can write off. The one thing to know is that it doesn't have self-directed investments. What that means is once you open this plan, you can just go and put all your money into Google or whatever your favorite stock is. In fact, this is a feature. It's designed for people to be able to choose investments, at a very high level without worrying too much about it. So the provider of 529 plan will give you a choice of roughly 5 to 10 investment options, and they're going to be very high level descriptions. And you're not going to be able to choose anything else. And as a matter of fact, in most of these accounts, you can only change your allocation up to twice a year. Again, it's designed as a feature so that people don't, spend too much time trading. It's designed to be easier for you to manage. Although we actually help a lot of our clients manage those investments for them. And if that's something that's important to you, we can always discuss that as well. And then finally, one of the new features that was literally passed last year in legislation called Secure 2.0. What happens with some of these investments, if you somehow oversave, which is one of those good problems to have, I suppose, and you end up with extra money in your 529 plan account once your kid is done with college. There are multiple options. One, you can change the beneficiary basically at any point. You can change it to your other kid. You can change it to your niece and nephew. You can change it to yourself if you want, if you're going back to school, or you can just save it and eventually change the beneficiary to your grandkid if you want to wait that long. But in addition to that, you can also have an option of rolling over the amount that's left up to $35,000 as a one-time rollover to the student's Roth IRA. So imagine your kid just graduated and there is a leftover in their 529 plan. You start their Roth IRA account to help them save for retirement right after college with $35,000. They'll thank you later, hopefully. The other way is to pay off student loans up to $10,000 again for the same beneficiary. So you have all these different options. And then, of course, you still remain the owner of the 529 plan account, not your kid, which means if you really want to, you can take out whatever amount out of it. But then if you're not using it for any of those qualified expenses, you have to face taxes and penalties. So keep in mind that's going to be expensive, but that's still an option. Your money is not stuck in there. And the other last point to make is that anyone can open an account with any beneficiary, which means your parents, kids' grandparents can do that. So instead of donating, a few $100s for their birthday, how about ask them to open a 529 plan account for them? And they can also use some of these other benefits like writing it off state taxes, for example. But you can also do it, like I said, for your nephews, or ask your siblings to open one for your kid as well, in lieu of some other gifts, or if they have the ability. So that all of that helps. And then going to the next slide, just want to spend a couple of quick minutes on loans because I promised that we'll cover that. So a lot of people end up in that situation where they've been saving, they've tried scholarships and grants, and they got to a certain point, but for for the kid to go to the college of their dreams, they're not quite there. They're a little short. So this is what you need to know about loans if you get to that point. There are typically 4 different types, and actually, to be fair, there's the first 2 that you need to know about, which is subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized means it's based on financial aid, and those, when they're offered, they have the best sort of conditions for the student to take out, which means they don't have to start repaying them until 6 months after graduation. And after that, the interest rate is going to depend on the prevailing interest rate that the Federal Reserve sets, and that will reset every year. So it's going to be based on that rate plus a certain amount, usually 2 or 3%. So in case you're not paying attention, the Federal Reserve lowered the rate again by 25 basis points, 0.25%. This is the 3rd time this year. We'll probably continue doing it next year. So anybody who has student loans will have their student loans rates reset in January by roughly 0.75% compared to last year. But these are the rates that you can see up there on all these different types, how they behaved, and you can see that the zigzag, it's based on what the Fed was doing with the rates. The unsubsidized loans basically means you're not getting those conditions. In other words, you getting the loan, the student is getting the loan, but the interest starts coming due literally next month. Not ideal, but can still help. And then you have direct plus loans, which is typically for graduate students, which sometimes the amount could be bigger, but they're specialized for typically undergraduate students are not going to get those. And these are also for parents. So the problem for parents, again, you're not getting those conditions where you can wait until you start repaying. You basically have to start repaying the next month, just like auto loans and mortgages. And then finally, you have these direct consolidation loans. Those are special loans that have been established to allow you, after graduation, to try to get several of these different types of loans you may have and consolidate them into one, typically lowering the average payment that you make. And again, this is a federal program. This is something to consider once you get to that stage. So that's on loans.
Sounds great.
Per, I'm just going to throw a question in here for Igor, because I think other people might also be curious. With a 529 system, you make a deposit. Is that guaranteed? So that, let's say that whatever it's invested in goes bust, are you still guaranteed your principal?
No, just like with every investment, you're not guaranteed your principal. But as I mentioned, the options that they give you are very broad categories. They're basically underlying funds that invest into a broad number of things. They're not going to go bust, but there is a possibility that if you're investing, especially in the short term, your principal may actually be lower than what you started with, which is something to keep in mind. But again, the options that are there are not just investing into AI stocks that are hot today. In fact, they don't do that at all. But you can have, let's say, if they invest into a stock index and the market drops, part of your investments should also be in some sort of bonds or fixed income instruments. And again, it's a broad fund. It may fluctuate and it may be negative for a period of time, but over a long period of time, it's historically always made money. So this is the reason that they limit your ability to choose your investments to these very, very broad categories. And in fact, they also allow you age-based categories. So in other words, they basically saying, when are you actually going to need the money to pay for college? And if it's more than 10 years, if you're starting this fund while your kid is in kindergarten or in grammar school, um, then you have the ability to recover some of these funds, and that age based option is going to be more aggressive. But if you are saying you're going to need it in 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a lot more conservative, and they will mostly invest in things that are income related, so you have less of a risk of actually losing your principal. But the short answer is yes, it could lose the principal. So you need to know what you're investing in, and you need to allow at least a little time for these investments to grow.
Thank you.
Great. So guys, the last place where families miss opportunities, and we'll race through this really quickly, is just college fit. Okay, I think so many times, as we've experienced, families are so focused on, as you see in the lower right corner there, the rankings, that they miss out on what's the best fit school for my kid. As we always like to say, the number one school in America is not Princeton or Williams, which is what U.S. News will tell you is the number one school. The number one school in the country is the school where your kid is going to thrive the most. And if that's Princeton or Williams, that's great, but so are thousands of other schools that are really amazing. And so you want to take all kinds of things into account. What's the size of the school? Do I want a school where my kid literally is just a number? There's no name. You just get a student ID number, and that's how they're identified because the school is so big. Some kids thrive in that such kind of a situation. Other kids want the teachers to know their name and to be able to get invited over to dinner sometimes and be able to go up to the teacher and communicate with them after class. Those are the kinds of things you want to be thinking about. Obviously, money, right? We love to tell the story. We had a kid who was into Dartmouth and Johns Hopkins, and I think it was Yale, maybe, or one other Ivy League. Neither of those three schools offered him like zero financial aid, right? So he was going to be out $300,000. And then he got into Tulane, which today is very competitive. Back then, it was not as popular as it is today. But Tulane offered him the presidential scholarship, which was full ride, tuition, room and board, first choice classes, first choice dorms, an annual trip with the president of the college somewhere in the world. Like, it was this unbelievable program. The father really wanted to send the kid to Dartmouth. And our advice was, you do what you want, but like, you could buy the kid a Porsche and go to Tulane and still come out with $200,000 better. So the kid ended up going to Tulane because it was really the better deal. Tulane's an amazing school. So you want to be taking that into account when you are taking into account college fit. Obviously, community. What's the kind? Do you want big rah-rah football? Do you want big fraternities? Do you want smaller, more intimate? You want to be thinking about those kinds of things. And then obviously the academics, right? What is, you don't want to be in a school where you're punching above your weight class and you can't keep up because the kids are, the rigor's too much. At the same time, you don't want to be in a school where the rigor's not enough. So you want to make sure you find those kinds of college fits. That's where we come in. We're happy to help you navigate that journey. I'll tell you, yeah, Barb.
Yeah, I just wanted, before you go on.
Oops, sorry, I muted you. I meant to mute myself. Wait, Barb, you're muted. Sorry, unmute. My bad. Sorry, meant to mute myself. Go ahead.
Okay. Just about academics, I just want to say something here. We love to use this example because it's just so profound. In terms of academics, does the school offer what you want to study? And we're going to give you this example. You got into Yale and Harvard and Princeton and Dartmouth and Brown, Columbia, Penn, and Full Sail University. Okay, I wish we were live, like we could see how many hands are going up. How many of you know what Full Sail University is? So if you were interested in gaming and animation, you would be a fool to go anywhere but Full Sail University, even though you got into all those other schools. Because you know what those other schools don't offer? Gaming and animation. Do you know who the #1 school is that all the animation companies in California go to recruit? Full Sail University. So we want to make sure when we're helping you choose schools or when you're doing it on your own, make sure the school offers what it is that you want to study. Okay. Years ago, not every school that had an architecture program had a specialty in green architecture. Okay. So if your passion was environmentally safe architecture, you might have gotten into the most prestigious architecture program in the country, but they didn't have an environmental program. Okay. So I use that example because it actually happened to a student of ours. So please make sure, in addition to knowing you fit academically where you're not going to be stressed, does the school offer what it is you at that moment in your life want to study? Okay, Perry, do you remember?
Yep. So just a little bit about us at AKALA, just so you have a sense. We are a college admissions consulting company. We're designed to level the playing field and access to guidance. As I mentioned, we're backed by some of the biggest names in tech, from Google to Techstars, and in education from places like from USC. Through those places, we designed this platform. Everything is organized into the categories colleges consider when evaluating a candidate. With AKALA, you get assigned a counselor. We meet every month. We advise you on the classes you take. All the classes from your high school are uploaded into the platform, so everything's nice from a user experience perspective. We have students go through a lot of surveys that are really short. Okay, because we know that teens don't want to go through the long surveys. Really short surveys. Go through 30 photos. Tell us something that's interesting to you. Up will come all the extracurricular activities, the clubs, the student organizations at your high school that have anything to do with those specific categories that you're interested in. So the platform's really powerful that way. Same thing with community service. You take the quick survey, you tell us where you want to help the world. Up comes ideas that you can do, as Barbara mentioned, something you can do even from home that count as community service. We also have you take the college major survey. Again, that's an example of the entire survey. It's very quick. But a lot of kids, we realize, don't know what, like they say, I want to do computer science. They say I want to do engineering. I want to do business. They don't realize all the majors that fall under that. If this is computer science, if you scroll, if this were our platform right now, you'd be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through all the majors. We want kids to really understand the options that are available to them in college. Tell us the colleges that are interesting to you, the majors that are interesting to you. And then we come up with the colleges that are really good at those majors, right? And so we produce the colleges for you. As you can see in that little box there, everything you need to explore the college from the comfort of your couch is right there. Where is it located? Is it urban, suburban, rural? How big is it? What kind of scores do I need to get in? On the right-hand side is the virtual tours. On the upper right, you've got all their social media, right? Their TikTok, their YouTube, their Instagram, their school newspaper. Everything you need to be able to tell us, hey, I'm interested, maybe, or not interested. And we try and get you to create that list actually as early as your grade 10 year. For the grade 11 students, we want you to start writing your essays in grade 11. And so if you're in grade 11 now and you come to us, we try and get you to build that list as fast as possible and then get you right into your essay writing. We also do a lot of passion exploration. So we have TED Talks and YouTube videos and graduation speeches, all tailored to your interest categories, which is really cool, getting kids exploring what's in the world beyond math, English, history, science, right? That's what we learn in high school, but like what goes beyond that. And then we have a cool journal entry feature where they can start to write journals and practice writing their essays. We have a whole messaging feature where parents and students and parents together, depending on what needs to be achieved, can message with each other and with their counselors. Go ahead, Igor.
Right. So this is a little bit about us, about Eureka Wealth Solutions. As I mentioned, we're a wealth management company. We're a fiduciary and we're fee-only registered investment advisor. What that means is Fiduciary means we put your interest first. That fee only also means we don't sell you any type of commissions-based products. We're not in the product selling business. We're here to help you with any financial needs that you have, and we specialize in financial planning. The focus is on college planning and retirement, but in reality, there's other goals that you may have, and we'll take all of those into consideration. From the investing perspective, we specialize in thematic and impact investing, which is a whole different other topic that I'm happy to talk offline on. We also can help manage held away accounts. What that means is accounts that are not in advisory investment accounts with us. So things like 529 plans, your corporate 401k, which is chances are where most of your worth is. We can help you manage that as well. Most other advisors can't, by the way. And then we have all these other potential features that you may be interested in that I'm not going to spend too much time on. And if we go to the next plan, I'll explain a little bit more about what financial planning really means. That's on the next slide. So normally, Barry, do you mind going to the next slide?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, just a few things about me. I am the CEO and the Chief Investment Officer. I'm also the co-founder of the company. Over 25 years. I will be changing that to 30 years next year, by the way, and I should probably update my picture too. That's about 10 years old, but that's me. And going to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about financial planning just so that you understand what that is. So generally, the idea is to look forward in terms of what your assets are and what your income is and what your goals and expenses are. So we take a holistic approach. We start with your goals and with your values, and the financial plan is built on ongoing basis. So we figure out where you stand right now, and we figure out what your future expenses are going to be. The biggest ones, as you guessed it, is your retirement, and then the second one is somewhere between your house or your primary residence and college planning for your kids, depending on the specifics. So we look at cash flow and management and at budgeting, and then we also do what if scenarios. So once we build the plan, what if college is more expensive than you thought? What if there's a market crash? What if there's inflation? What if you lose your job? What if you move to another state? A million other what ifs. And this not only gives you the plan and gives you the tools to do it, and then we implement it using investments to keep up with this plan, and we can verify that you are on your plan this whole time. But the biggest thing is peace of mind. Most people come to most financial decisions with, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And with what we hear with college planning specifically is, yeah, I should have thought about it 10 years ago, but I haven't. So what do I do now? And how's that going to affect my life? Do I have to work five more years instead of retiring? Does that mean I can take vacations for 5 years, or should I just tell my kid to go to state school instead of private school? We take all of that out. We help you do all of that. And as a matter of fact, if you're on this webinar, or if you're already an existing AKALA customer, what we can do for you as an offer is we can start with on our plan, which is normally just includes investment, and we can upgrade you for the first month for free to financial planning. So we can start building all of that, and we can show you the value of it. And believe me, most people are very skeptical when they hear financial planning and think you have to have a lot of money for it, or you don't have the time for it, or whatever else. Once they go through the process, they understand how important it is, and they don't understand how they haven't done this years ago. Regardless, we'll give you the opportunity to do this for free for the first month, and if you don't want it, we'll take it off at that point. So that's a little bit about us.
Cool. All right, guys. I saw someone. I know we ran a little bit over, so we'll end it here. But someone did ask about the recording, so I'm happy to tell you we're going to be sending out the recording, so you don't have to have taken screenshots or written anything down. But also, if you're interested in AKALA, like, please, schedule a free consultation with us. It is free. We'll answer specific questions about you and your kid. And obviously no pressure, but if you want to sign up, you're more than welcome to. And yeah, with that, I think I apologize for running so late. Here's Igor's information if you want to schedule a time with him. And with that, I believe we can end it. Igor, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not really. So yeah, you can just scan that QR code for the consultation with us, similarly to QR code for AKALA. And yes, we'll send out the slides or the video, and we'll send you that link that I promised for the college savings matrix. And yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking to you. It's a free consultation. What have you got to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. And then cool. All right, guys. So great to meet everybody, and we will be in touch. Talk to you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.